Hola, hola mi gente, ¿qué pasa? Bienvenidos de nuevo a mi canal. If you're new here, what is up? Welcome to my channel. My name is Ariana and I'm a digital nomad. I create content and resources for other digital nomads and solo travelers. For the last 2 years, while I've been traveling by myself, one of the most common questions that I get is, do I ever get lonely while traveling? And I do think to an extent everyone gets lonely at some point or another, but honestly I don't truly feel like I'm alone when I'm traveling because I meet and come across so many people. So today we're going to be talking about how to make friends while solo traveling. I'm going to give you guys some ideas for things you can do and how you can plan your trips so that you are in spaces and places to meet new people and hopefully make some friends. So my first tip for how to make friends while solo traveling would be to take a cruise. You could cruise to your destination, and in the process of getting there while you're on the ship, you are eating and sleeping and essentially living with all these people that are on the ship with you. So being in such close-knit quarters is like the recipe for making friends. There are plenty of spaces where you can interact and meet people, like bars or going to the dining hall just to eat a meal. There's pools, there's usually different shows and entertainment, or sometimes there will be a casino. So there's lots of things on the ship where you can essentially have fun, and in the process, like I said, you're in such close quarters and you're seeing some of the same people day in and day out because there's so many people on the ship for however long you're cruising. You get the opportunity to make lots of friends. So my second tip is a pretty common tip, and it is to get shared accommodations. So by shared accommodations, this could either be staying in a hostel where you are essentially in a room and you have your own bed to sleep in, but you're sharing the space with other people. Or you can stay in a shared Airbnb. And this is when you book a regular Airbnb, but the host typically lives there and they may house other people within that shared Airbnb, or just maybe you and the host. But essentially you're sharing that living space with someone that's local to the area. Hostels make it really easy to meet people because they're focused around the idea of sharing and cultivating community. So they'll host a lot of different events and activities to get people to intermingle with each other outside of just sleeping in the same room. And the number of people in a room can vary. So I've seen hostels where you're sharing it with 1 or 2 other people. And then I've seen, or I actually Googled because I was curious to know how many people could fit in one room when it comes to hostels. And some of them go up to like 40 beds. So if that's your thing, definitely give it a try, especially if you want to travel solo but not be alone. On the other hand, if you're like me and you are introverted and don't really care to share your space, there is the option of the shared Airbnb, which is what I've done in a couple different places. I've done it here in Medellin, Colombia. I think it was my first time traveling here. I did a shared living space and it worked out really nice. The girl that I stayed with, Alejandra, she was able to tell me about the area, and it was really helpful for the time that I was visiting too, because it was still when COVID was a lot more prevalent, and so the city was on lockdown, and so she was able to help me kind of keep up with what was going on with new news that was coming out and new updates and things like that. So if you aren't ready to kind of share a space with a stranger, there is another option of doing a shared Airbnb, which works out nicely. You get your own room, you get to interact with a local host who lives there that can help you out with tips and different things around the area. And it's usually a lot more affordable than just getting a place on your own. Number 3 on my list of ways to make friends while solo traveling would be to join an organized travel group. So travel groups are essentially organizers that put together a trip for you. They put together the itinerary, where you're staying, and sometimes they'll even handle food and your transportation there. And this is all included in one package that you essentially can pay for either in deposits or in one installment, however they coordinate it. Typically when I've done travel groups in the past, it's usually deposits because you're paying a hefty amount for the cost of the trip, but you usually get a lot of value out of it, and it is a great way to meet people. So essentially once you pay for your trip, you just show up to the destination on the day of, and then you're able to meet everyone else that decided to do the same thing as you. A good travel group to look into is Remote Year. This was the program that I was going to join before the pandemic hit, and I ended up changing all of my travel plans. But long story short, they do that same thing essentially. They plan trips that last 3 to 7 days. They also do trips that last a month or 3 months and even the whole year. There are other travel groups out there, and this by no means is sponsored by Remote Year, but if they'd love to sponsor me, hello. I would give you guys some recommendations of travel groups that I've done in the past, but with the pandemic and everything that has happened with travel, a lot of the travel groups that I have known, unfortunately, no longer are in business. If you're looking for actual travel groups that plan just vacation trips, I would just Google or look on Instagram or just use social media. TikTok is probably a good resource for that too, to find other travel groups that you can look into. And speaking of social media, that brings me to my next tip, which is to make friends virtually before you actually go to your destination. There are some cool apps out there for this. Facebook is great for this because they have groups, and so you can just look up different travel groups specifically for where you're going. So for example, if you're going to Costa Rica, you can look up nomads in Costa Rica or solo travel in Costa Rica. There's also travel groups that are just geared towards solo travel or just travel for females. So there's lots of options out there. You can literally narrow down for something very specific that you're looking for when it comes to making friends while you're traveling, or you can just look for friends more broadly in general that just like traveling and sometimes even find inspiration for different destinations to go to. I've seen people commenting in the group and kind of making plans of meeting up in a place and meeting each other there and doing that. I've never personally done that, but it is a great way to meet people. I have actually used the Expat app. If you haven't used that app and you are interested in solo traveling or doing a black sit or just anything around black travel, that is a great app to look into. I have met people on that app and we have connected. It's usually people that are coming to a destination that I'm in. So for example, being here in Colombia, I've met like 1 or 2 ladies on that app who just had questions, and I gave them my best answer, and we started talking, and eventually when they came, we were able to meet and link up, and it was really cool being able to meet people. So if you're someone who isn't really good at making friends on the spot, or you're not really into small talk, it may be a good idea to look into making friends virtually first, and then possibly meeting up with that person in the destination when you get there. Okay, so my next tip up is to be approachable. While you're out and you're traveling solo, it might be tempting to put your headphones in or to constantly be on your phone, but it's really good to be present in the place that you are visiting. And when you are, it naturally just draws people towards you, especially other people who are also there by themselves doing the same thing. So that would be my advice in any space that you're in. If you are looking to make friends, don't have headphones in, try and be very present and aware, and it just opens up the opportunity to engage with people, have small talk, and truthfully, you just never know what type of interesting people you'll meet this way. I've met some of the most interesting people in some of the most random places. For example, when I was in Lisbon, Portugal, I was at a laundromat and I met this guy who, if you looked at him, you would never guess, but he told me he spoke like 6 different languages, and he was older, so he was like, back in my day I worked for MTV, did all these documentaries. He had traveled the world and was a TV producer for MTV. Mind-blowing. And I would have just never imagined meeting someone like that in such a casual place or such a random place as a laundromat. So that is my tip to you. Definitely be approachable in all places because you just never know. My next tip for meeting people while solo traveling might be a little controversial depending on, where you are in life. I would suggest to use Tinder or other dating apps. Tinder and Bumble and Hinge, I think, are the only 3 that I'm super familiar with, but there's also dating apps that are specific to the destination you go to. So I know like here in Colombia, Badoo is another one that they use often. You can use these dating apps to meet and connect with other people. The catch is you'll have to be very specific about what you put in your profile. You'll definitely want to mention that you're a traveler, you're a solo traveler, and you're looking to meet other travelers. Just so it's clear up front that it's not a situation where you're looking for someone to date or hook up with. But still expect, nonetheless, you'll have to swipe through toads, and I'm sure you'll match with people that are not truly a match, but it is the opportunity to meet people, especially if you're introverted. You just never know who you might match with. Sometimes it'll be other travelers coming in and visiting like you are. Other times you are able to meet locals that way, and I've done that and gotten some of the best free tours of a place. So highly recommend checking out Tinder and other dating apps that are local to the area that you're going to. My next suggestion is to spend time in social spaces. Now, this one might kind of sound like a given, but it is important to think about when you're planning your trip and thinking about where you want to go to. I know when I went to Faro, Portugal, my main motivation with going there was because the Afro Nation Festival was happening, and so I knew there was gonna be tons of people there to meet and get to know and have fun with. So consider that when trying to pick a trip destination. You can also look into the local events that'll be happening there while you're visiting. So things like language exchanges, or like a paint and sip, or a local artist performing. These are all great ways to be in social spaces with other people. There's also common social spaces like parks or coffee shop, co-working spaces, and of course like bars and clubs, the general. So keep all of those in mind when you're thinking about your activities and trying to plan and coordinate where you want to go for your solo trip. Okay, so my last and final tip would be to keep your travel plans flexible. You want to have an itinerary that will have a list of different activities you want to do, things you want to see, what you want to eat, all of that. Have all your places kind of planned out, but still have the flexibility to adjust your schedule if need be. So if you happen to connect with someone in an activity that you're doing and you guys really hit it off, and maybe they're going to do something else afterwards, or you guys would like to have dinner and still continue to hang out, you have that flexibility to realign or reschedule the activities you have planned for another day so that you can hang out with the new travel bud that you made. The travel guides at the Wanderbox are perfect for this because each travel guide is made with that in mind. As a solo traveler, you want to have that flexibility to kind of arrange and coordinate things as you'd like. It also leaves the opportunity to add in different activities that you might want to do that aren't necessarily on that list. So be sure to check that out at shopthewanderbox.com. It is travel guides that are fit to match your travel style, and of course perfect for solo travelers because it gives you that flexibility that you need, but also making travel planning super easy. So that concludes my list of ways to make friends while solo traveling. If you guys have any other ideas for how to connect and meet new people when you're by yourself, let me know down in the comments below. Also be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I post travel vlogs and content every Wednesday and on the occasional Fridays, and I have lots more exciting destinations to come. So I hope to catch you guys in the next one. Hasta luego.